everybody. I'm Sarah Hill. I'm with Target and the Target Accelerators team. I'm super excited to be talking to these lovely folks today about the concept that we've all been talking about all morning in winning in digital marketplaces. So we've got my friends / colleagues that it's been a while since we've connected, but we have spent significant amounts of time together when they both came through the Target Accelerator program in 2019. It feels like it was yesterday in some regards, and it also feels like it was a million years ago. But we'll kick off this afternoon by doing having each of the founders give quick overviews of each of their companies, and then we'll pop into some Q&A and just really wanting to make this discussion and dialogue between the people that are viewing as well as us. So we have some curated questions that I'll ask, but also please would love if you guys can drop questions into the chat as well. So I think we can get started. Daniel, do you want to give a quick overview of Cooklist and what you guys are working on? I can kind of tee it up a little bit because I think what you guys are solving is such a pain point for me, and I think it's so amazing. And I know that a lot of people are. I won't spoil some of the key facts that you just shared, but essentially just being able to cook recipes with the groceries that you buy and not just at one single retailer, because I buy certain things at Costco, sorry, Target, and certain things at Target, and I want to have an understanding of that, and you have solved that for us. So do you want to kind of give an overview?
Sure, yeah. So, hey everyone, I'm Daniel Vitello, co-founder of Cooklist. I'm just going to pull up or share my screen here. And I've got a slide. Just if you haven't seen the app, I think it'll help give a little more context when we're talking about these things. But essentially, Cooklist is an app that people use to do their whole, all kinds of too many animations going on here. That people use for doing meal planning, grocery shopping, cooking recipes, and keeping track of their household inventory or pantry inventory. Something that has really gotten popular, especially over the last year. In like March, there were people who were preppers who were using Cooklist to inventory their whole like basement full of food they had to survive the pandemic.
Oh, those are preppers. I was thinking like food preppers, but like the end of the world preppers.
No, like yeah, doomsday preppers.
Doomsday preppers.
But even for just normal everyday usage, right? It's helpful to understand, things that are in the back of your fridge, things that are in the back of the canned goods, all in your pantry. 6 months, a year passes, and you've forgotten that those things are back there. And then you also have your spice cabinet that has tons of stuff in it, and it's hard to have that mental flexibility to remember all of that stuff you have, and then combine it in unique ways that's going to make something really good to eat. And so Cooklist kind of solves that problem by connecting to different retailers. So we connect to about 80 different retailers that users can basically enter their credentials and kind of link it up with the same way you might link your bank or like credit cards to a financial app. So then all your purchases automatically download into the app. We keep track of how old everything is and send you notifications when it's going to expire, as well as match all of those things in your pantry to your recipes. So you can see, we have a couple million recipes in our database now, and we can filter those to only show you the ones that you can cook with the stuff you have. And so that kind of is like a huge value proposition for people. But our goal is really to kind of then complete the whole grocery cycle. So once you've cooked everything that you have in your house, we then have some meal planning features. So kind of the unique aspect there is we kind of tie in the retailers' like grocery store products in with the traditional recipe-based meal planning experience. And so we find that this falls in line with kind of the more natural way that most people eat. You might prepare from scratch a couple meals per week or, special recipes. And then other nights in the week, you're going to do sort of like either partial prep or no prep things. And with Cooklist, we kind of give you the ability to add those grocery store items, which traditionally can't be added to a meal planner app. You can add them right into your meal plan, and then all the integration or all the nutrition information is integrated together and summarized really nicely. And then based on that meal plan, we can then generate a grocery shopping list. So we look at what's in your pantry, reconcile that, and put together the list of the items that you're missing. And then we actually match all of those items on your list to products at local retailers. So people can kind of, one, see like what's available at their local retailers, as well as do some price comparison. And then straight from the Cooklist app, they can do a basket transfer. Or even with Target, we actually have a partnership set up where you can order directly through the Cooklist app, and then a Shipt shopper will deliver the groceries to you. And then so this kind of makes that full end-to-end experience that all takes place, where normally this would be, you would kind of have like, you know, your Shipt app for doing delivery. You would have, you know, maybe your Pinterest app for finding recipes. You would use your AnyList app to make a shopping list. And then the pantry aspect is just what always like goes out the door, and, you know, households end up wasting a lot of money every year doing this. This is just kind of a preview. I guess I should have had this up actually talking about the different aspects in the app, but yeah, that's kind of the overview of what Cooklist is and how it works.
Danielle, I have to say, I think that the biggest thing for me, like, I feel like there's a way to say this that's cool. It's like, it's the whatever for me. It's the bag salad for me. Like, you know, the jokes, it's like,
oh, the bottom drawer.
Or I buy the bag salad to just throw it away weekly. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. But Cooklist is like, hey, you have bag salad. And I'm like, that's right, I did buy that.
Yeah,
so,
we'll send you the push notification when it's like getting kind of borderline, and we're like, yeah, hey, it's gonna go bad.
So then I'm not just tossing it and not just doing this repetitive cycle of buying and throwing, composting the salad. Okay, awesome. I have like a million questions also, because I recently purchased a Samsung fridge that I thought was going to be very integrated, and I was like, where's the Cooklist app on my fridge? Anyway, more to come on that. Very excited to also, before we kind of dive deeper into the whole discussion around all of the capabilities that you guys are both building, want to toss it over to Tareem, who's absolutely wonderful and lovely, CEO of Sozie, who is also in the same accelerator program as Danielle, and she's developed a solution for shoppers to see what real clothes look like on real bodies. And, you know, I think this is when I find somebody that's also like 5'0" or 5'1" on a good day, and you exchange like, oh, do you know the petites in this brand or this? Like, and so you're texting with this friend or sending them photos. Well, Tareem has developed a way to automate that and scale it. Super excited to learn more and have everybody on the line learn more about Sozie. Tareem, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, Sarah. So I'll just confirm you can see my screen, and then I'm happy to show you guys a brief summary of what Sozie is. We are B2B, so it's, you know, it ultimately serves the consumer, but some of it may be a little lost on people who aren't specifically in this industry, but I'll give a quick summary. And then I'll show you a really quick live demo of it happening real life in America. So, okay.
Oh, and also, Tareem, it's, what'd you say, 11 p.m.?
It is 11:14 p.m. in Lahore, and it's dark, but, you know, we have the curtains drawn, and I'm on a lot of coffee.
Well, this is truly like a global event, so thank you so much for that.
And no, I'm so excited to be here. Truthfully, I just was excited to see you, Sarah and Daniel, but, you know, all you other 33 people or so. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Nope, not yet.
No.
There we go. It's coming up.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so the fundamental problem of online shopping when it comes to fashion apparel is that models don't look like the vast majority of shoppers. Indeed, the average shopper size is a size 16, and she's 5'3", while a model is a size 4 at most and is 5'11". So the vast majority of people look at that and they really struggle to understand how things they're seeing online are going to look on them. So they either overbuy and plan to return right from the outset, or they avoid online shopping altogether. And that creates really big problems for online retailers, where the consumer abandons purchase because they're confused, the retailer's experiencing lower sales, and where the shoppers are overbuying and returning, that really affects the profit margin of the retailer. And so what we are doing is we're taking, I'm sure in America, everybody's familiar with Rent the Runway and the amazing experience that Rent the Runway provides for all of its clothes, where you can literally browse an item on a model, try it on by tons of different people and see key size and fit information. So what we're doing is we're taking this experience and bringing it across the web to lots of different retailers, and Target is one of them. So this content, it does, user-generated content is what is the term that applies to such content. And there is, of course, there are incumbent providers that supply user-generated content. But the key issue with current user-generated content, and that's think like reviews coming from when you purchase something and then you're asked to leave a review, or something you might share on social media. If you have a public account, it might get picked up. These are kind of basically the solutions that exist in the market. And there's some critical problems. They're basically covering only a small amount of product that the retailer's offering. So only about 25% of product has any UGC. And there's always a cold start, because when the product goes live, it takes at least 2 to 4 weeks to start seeing UGC start to come in. So that misses the really critical period of the product launch, where there's the most traffic going to that product detail page. So what Sozie is an on-demand content platform where content can literally be whipped up by the retailer at their demand. And that gives the retailer the ability to scale coverage across products. It gives them content live at the launch of the product online, and so that the benefits of user-generated content are realized when there's peak traffic visiting that product detail page. And it's both on demand and very scalable, and gives retailers the kind of control over user-generated content that they wish they had, so they could actually activate it in ways that are aligned with their strategic priorities. And localization, for example, is one of those priorities that we're seeing a lot in the market. So there's 3 key elements to the platform. One is the demand side, which is the web portal provided to the e-commerce team of the retailers, and this is where they can send out requests for content by product. There's the supply side of the platform, which is held by the users, who we call Sozies. And they're the ones who create the content and receive the requests for content. And then there's the integrations. So we have several different integrations that allow the content to very easily then appear onto the product detail pages of the retailer's website. And that is going backwards. So going forwards, this is just more detail in terms of when a Sozie receives a request, like how does she create the content? And I'd like to get into exactly who the Sozies are. So we have 2 business models. One is either the employees of the retailer. So Adidas is an example of is an example of our clients who actually employs their store staff as Sozies to create content during quiet hours in store. And it really makes for an optimal pool of people, because they're very enthusiastic about the brand. They're within arm's reach of thousands of product, and there is a significant amount of hours in store where it's quieter and they can participate in such an activity. And then for our US clients, for example, Target, we also have our own community of incentivized folk who are able to create content on demand. And, this is a sample of what some of the content ends up looking like. There's always body measurements, size worn, and key, lots of pictures, basically, angles of pictures. And here's a couple of integrations. One's on Target's website and one's on Adidas's website. So I think that gives you a pretty good sense of what the solution does. And ultimately, we're very much a metrics-driven solution, and we're very aligned with key priorities of e-commerce teams. So having more content on your product detail pages means you're more likely to be found by consumers, because you're higher up in search rankings and you get more traffic. We increased engagement on those product detail pages by 173%, and sales conversion by 4-fold. And actually, we outperformed a lot of other solutions on Target.com in the early days when we started, and we got these metrics. And so it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
I'll just stop there.
No, that's amazing, Tareen. Thank you so much for the overview. And Danielle, I'm so excited to kind of dive into this topic, and a lot of the conversations this morning too around kind of this, e-commerce model and how you guys are creating these differentiated experiences and all of these kind of aspects to how I think Target is really excited about the opportunity to work with you guys as well, because e-commerce in a sense comes down to the experience is relatively the same, whether depending on which website you're on. You search for product, you can look at a handful of reviews, you add it to the cart and you check out. But I think what you guys are developing is really kind of solving some pain points for consumers and guests. And I think Tareem too, I mean, even for some of the team members and staff at Adidas, I think that's even, I mean, a better capability of weaving those in as they can be kind of some of your strongest champions. But I think, you know, what a lot of the themes coming up around kind of omni-channel today, and I think the pandemic has definitely affected this as well, but would love to kind of hear your guys' thoughts on how you think unique and differentiated offerings, like what you guys are providing to retailers, will affect purchasing decisions, or what you've seen, I guess, in the market so far too. Like, Daniel, do you want to start?
Yeah, the interesting thing, I think, that is kind of maybe the bigger trend potentially. So with Cooklist, we've kind of changed how the traditional e-commerce shopping experience works. So instead of having to, like, you know, you have a recipe that has 8 ingredients you need, and then instead of having to browse a list of products and then select each of those 8 ingredients, the way that Cooklist works is you say, I want to cook this recipe, and then our algorithms actually do the product selection of what specific, you know, UPC or branded product that we think is best going to not only fit the recipe, but also the user's personal preferences by looking at their past purchases and yeah, kind of their other preferences related to their account. And so what this does is it basically goes from every decisions manual to more of like, and what we see is users actually end up purchasing around 80% of the items that we select. And then that other 20%, they actually will swap out for a different brand or size.
Amazing. Do you have the ability, Daniel, to say, like, to offer alternatives? So like, I think of a common ingredient that I don't have, which is like buttermilk. If I'm like, oh, I've got a great recipe and it's like buttermilk, I'm like, son of a, like, and
Yeah.
like recommend, hey, you have like, I don't know, butter and milk. I know that that's not buttermilk.
Yeah, like whole milk or something could be.
Yeah.
So we do have a whole substitution built in, and that's kind of, people find that useful, trying to stretch the ingredients they have. And we'll, you know, this is more of like using what you have and being able to substitute it in different ways. But when you're trying to buy the products to like make the recipe, what we do is typically by default, we'll add any substitutions that could work. We find that we'll add those by default to the list, and you can optionally uncheck those. So yeah, there is a whole, like, we call it our like core identity system, which is how we link this whole like space of millions of products to millions of recipe ingredients. And then we've kind of like we've like done like the expert work of identifying like which substitutions can be made between specific ingredients. But as far as the question on, yeah, I guess the offering for retailers or the channel, I think it's, you know, what we've been experimenting with Target is kind of having Target be the logistics and fulfillment for the, you know, this order that gets placed through the Cooklist app, which I think we're seeing more and more of kind of retailers opening up APIs to allow, you know, traffic from different third-party integrations and services kind of direct the orders to the retailers, and then the retailers have that, you know, massive, like, one, you know, sourcing all the products, logistics for actually moving the physical things around and getting them where they need to go. And I think, yeah, you'll see more of this, like, kind of the fragmented front end to the consumer facing, and then the retailers really providing that logistics and delivery and product selection and everything.
Yeah, that off-platform or is it off-target platform, but commerce, I think, is really a growing trend that we'll probably see more of in the future. And Tareem, what about your perspective on that kind of differentiated offering of how do you think that will kind of affect purchasing behaviors? Yours is kind of directly correlated with, oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, so basically what we've seen so far is that when we have Sozie content on product detail pages, shoppers who are coming, guests that are coming online and coming to that product detail page, they're engaging for a lot longer. So they're spending a lot more time browsing and looking at all the rich information that content is providing. And then they're also more likely to convert. So I think the change really in their behavior is that instead of making rash decisions when they're purchasing online or rapidly closing a page and losing interest, they're actually purchasing with much greater confidence online because they're spending a lot more time absorbing the rich information that's there. And I think that is part of the shift in creating more trust in online shopping and bringing it closer to the in-store experience or some of the value propositions of in-store that online has been missing, right? And I think that trust is a big piece of it. So with richer information on product detail pages, you can expect people to be perusing for a lot longer and having that leisurely perusal type experience online that they would have typically had in store. And instead of online just being like a rapid, I'll buy it and see how it is, it actually becomes much more of an engaging, long time, like you spend a lot more time looking at things and then being much more confident in what you're buying so that you're actually happy with it when it comes home. So I think that's what we're seeing in the numbers. And I think that's the shift you can expect in purchasing decisions, more confidence and more trust.
That correlates a lot with the kind of discussion yesterday too, of this trend that we're seeing with specifically, or more so with Gen Z and millennial guests in that they're shopping to align with, or their identity is a lot, is represented in the things that they're buying and the things that they're doing. And aligns with their beliefs. And I think both of you guys, have set yourselves up in a really great position in that, like, you're giving them a sense of trust and the confidence of when, they're engaging with a Sozie or, in building a recipe, that it's like a curated experience and it's kind of customized to them.
Yeah.
One thing I want to kind of touch on too is this aspect, I think, Tareem, that you made me think of, and then also thinking about like the thousands of recipes. Daniel, I get this a lot when I Google literally any recipe or you use Cooklist, in the sense that I don't think that I ever thought of a time that I would go to a product detail page or any other page and there would be a product that has 100,000 reviews. Like, to me, I don't know if any of us really thought about that, because the past 5 years or so, we've been focusing on how we get more reviews and more reviews. And now I'm curious at your guys' take on this. Sometimes when I see a product that has that many reviews, my confidence in it actually goes down. Or I'm like, this seems just right. Or like, I'm not going to leave a review now. What does it matter to leave 100,001 comments on it? Like, it's not going to affect that star rating.
Yeah.
I'm curious, kind of, I think, Tareem, you're directly in this space, but I think recipes can go for that as well, Daniel, in that, like, a lot of times I'm like, well, 50,000 people have ranked that this cookie recipe is the best. I'm just going to do that one. So what's your take on kind of confidence, and do you see people moving away from that just buying the highest rated thing? Daniel, you want to go first?
Yep. So within the last year, we've actually introduced ratings and reviews in the Cooklist app, and across recipes, but also across products. So all the grocery store products and meal plans. We kind of have these template meal plans that we have a nutritionist on our team that makes some, and then users also generate them. And so there's kind of actually a user-generated content aspect of the meal plans, recipes, and products. We used to not show the recipe or the reviews in kind of going through the feed of recipes. You would have to actually click into the recipe to see the reviews. And we were getting so many requests from our users that, you Google the cookie recipe, right? And then there's 50,000 chocolate chip cookie recipes. So then the question is, they were kind of, faced with this like decision paralysis of, how do I make the decision on knowing like which one is better versus another? And I think there's kind of this inherent cognitive bias that we all have towards which comes from, for a good reason, from like a survival perspective, where just safety in numbers, right? And so if 50,000 other people have tried this thing and given it 5 stars, then you can at least attribute a higher degree of probability that it
can't be bad.
Right, versus something that is, only has 2 reviews, and even if it has 5 stars, but 2 reviews, right? So I don't think we'll see that go away. I think yeah, it's still very much in demand. But I think the problem which Amazon has run into some issue with, and other retailers as well, is the fake reviews, right? So it's, can you actually trust that these reviews are legitimate? And I think that is the problem that retailers need to focus on addressing, or whatever services are doing the sort of like content creation or this user generated content and review system is, can you trust that that number means what it's saying? And that's, I think, the harder problem to address.
Yeah, and I think personally, once it gets up over like 1,000, I'm kind of like, how could this be real?
I always go to, then when it's like that, right? Then what I find myself doing now is I go to the most recent reviews, right? And then I'll look at the 10 most recent, because I don't know, in some way, like maybe that's a better indicator. If you're trying to compare a few products and they all have like a similar number of really high total aggregate reviews. But if that's been generated over a 5-year period, the more recent ones are probably a better signal. So maybe some sort of discount weighting or something, like that.
The tech approach to that.
Yeah.
And Teresa, I mean, you're solving exactly that. You're giving people real consumer photos and incentives that they're not incentivized to leave a positive review. They're incentivized just to leave their honest feedback.
Yeah, it's well, the thing is with fashion and apparel, there's two things that make it different. First of all, like turnover in product is much more the case in fashion apparel, right? With fast fashion, especially, like you don't have the same items again and again, except for maybe a few items that are like part of a core offering that the brand or retailer has. And so you'll hardly ever find something with like thousands of reviews when it comes to fashion apparel, right? That doesn't, you'd know that from your experience. Of course, like a cookie dough or something that's milk or something that's on the market forever, or even like furniture to some degree would last longer. But fashion apparel, it changes so often that the stuff that's online today is new and it didn't exist 30 days ago or 60 days ago. So it won't have much content. So like if you look at numbers, for example, I think you're right in the sense that even in fashion, there is a skew where some products will get a ton of reviews, and then there's a huge tail end of products that get absolutely no user generated content. And I'm including reviews in that, right? So if you look at the fashion category, it's less than 20% of items, like specific product detail pages, that actually have reviews at all. And then within that, the most engaged reviews are the ones with pictures, and it's less than 2% of reviews that are coming from consumers that actually have pictures. And when it comes to authenticity and realness and trust, trusting those reviews, pictures say 1,000 words, right? Like I frankly don't care as a consumer if you love your black dress, but I get a lot more information from your review if you've tried it on and I can see it on you and that's relatable to me. So that's really the difference in the fashion apparel and accessories in segment. I think that if we continue to see a prolific increase in reviews as they are, which is that they're largely text-based and quite meaningless in fashion apparel to most shoppers, then that's not incrementally useful to shoppers. And, there's going to be maybe potentially a fatigue of like, what's the point of this, as you were describing. But I think that if it moves in the direction of getting a wider base of product coverage, having such rich content and making that content rich and meaningful to other online shoppers, then it would be great. And I think Daniel touched on the element of trust. I would touch on the element of consumers are often more motivated to leave a review when they're pissed than when they're happy.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I get something, I'm like, oh, one of those reviews is right. I'm not going to be like, I'm moderately happy with this.
Yeah, exactly. Who's going to be motivated to leave a review more than someone who's upset? And they're often upset about things that are not going to be useful pieces of information to other shoppers when they're reading that content or looking at that content, like my shipment was late, or something else to do with their experience shopping rather than specifically to do with the product. So there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of space for content to be richer, better serving for consumers and covering more product. And I think that in that domain, there's a ton of value still to be unlocked, both in terms of serving consumers and then obviously the benefit to the retailer in sales.
I love it. Yeah, I couldn't agree with everything that you both just said. I think I actually had this experience of reading reviews recently and buying a treadmill. And Daniel, to your point of like looking at, I think treadmills is one of those things that the model changes over the years. So
Right.
people are reading reviews on things that were like,
Older.
you know, years ago. And then the recent reviews is like, oh, you have to download this app to even get the thing to turn on. And I was like, that's, yeah. So I love that. And then Tareem, to your point, half of the bad reviews from the particular place that I was ordering it was about the delivery experience.
Yeah.
Because not surprisingly, it's really challenging for people to carry like 500 pounds upstairs, is what I learned. But people will leave a bad review for that. I want to address a couple of questions in the chat because I think that they're important in a topic that has kind of come up in a handful of different conversations, I think, throughout today and throughout this entire week around where if you're promoting product. I think, Daniel, this is probably a little bit more relevant to you, but I think, Tareem, for you as well, I think the incentive structures are probably a little bit different, but would love to hear your take on it. Are you promoting particular product, or how does that work in with the Cooklist aspect of this in terms of what recommendations or products you're showing to the app users?
Yeah, so we kind of try to remain like a neutral third party, and with the way that we integrate and do the shopping experience with retailers. So, you know, if someone's looking just to add products to their meal plan, essentially they can kind of browse different products at a local grocery store. So, you know, there may be a section of, you know, like plant-based meat or like fresh vegetables, and then we're essentially querying the retailers in real time and then just displaying the results that they're returning for those queries in whatever order that the retailer returns it. Because generally the retailers have some incentive to order their search results in whatever way they think is most useful. And so we kind of use that in our experience as well. And then when it comes to the actual cart matching, so, you know, someone added a recipe to their shopping list and they need, you know, a cup of flour or something, right? This is actually a trickier problem than you might expect because we aggregate millions of recipes, which there's no like hard limit on how the author expresses the units or the types of quantities for recipes. So they may say like a handful of spinach, right? And then if you have 3 recipes that use spinach, one says a handful of spinach, one says a half pound of spinach, and one says a cup of spinach. We then have to try to combine all of those into one total weight because most products at retailers are sold by weight. And so we've actually defined densities for thousands of ingredients, as well as like approximate measurements for these like obscure measurements, like a handful. And then what we basically do is we sum it to a total quantity in grams that the user needs to do all the recipes that they're trying to buy with that shopping list item. And so then what we do is we'll query the retailer and say, okay, show us all your spinach products, and send us back the whole list. And then based on because we do it, it's all local, right? So this is in real time, what's locally available for pickup or delivery. So we'll look at this list of like what spinach is available at this Target that's near the user. And then we use our system for determining what's actually a spinach product or not. Because sometimes you guys throw in stuff that's not spinach. And it won't
or it's like a spinach colored t-shirt or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So or like, you know, coconut oil, right? You can get all kinds of health and beauty products, and yeah. So it's a challenge. That's where we have our own models for actually classifying the products and making sure that we can use them in the recipes that we intend. And so then once we say, okay, you know, here's the products that are available, they can actually be used. Then we'll look at the user's past purchase history and say, have they bought spinach before? And then if so, we'll try and just make that same product selection for them again. And then it's like, and we kind of have this whole like tiered hierarchy, right? Of like the way that decision is made of like what spinach product actually gets matched and put into that user's shopping cart. And then like, it's like, if, you know, all of those are done, then it basically will prioritize by like either the height up in the search results that the retailer returned it. Again, kind of leaning on this proxy of the most relevant thing is going to be higher in the results. We were initially trying to like optimize for like either the lowest cost overall or the like lowest cost per gram. And those are both bad optimizations, because if you go for lowest cost overall, you end up with these like really small, expensive products. And then if you go for lowest cost per volume or gram, you end up with these like bulk size products.
Yeah.
Right. So
like survivor tub of like random things.
Yeah. So we basically know like we have a minimum quantity in grams we need, and then we'll try and find like the highest product in the search results that satisfies that. And then either, we'll scale the quantity if we need to. But yeah, for us, it's not we're not doing any like sponsored things as far as like deliberately sponsoring one brand over the other. It's really just trying to make sure that users are having the best possible experience and getting the best possible match for whatever product that they need.
I love that. And Tareem, I totally want your thoughts on this aspect as well. One thing that I will mention, and I think that this is really kind of telling to what the principles and the kind of the purpose of what you built and what you didn't build, I think even more importantly, is when you were doing this, I think in you kind of launched Cooklist. I remember Target being like, wait, sometimes other retailers, when you like look at what is the cheapest or most affordable option to make this recipe, Target wasn't the most affordable. And I think that was really compelling, because I think price is one aspect that people can compete on. And we all know this, I think being in retail, fulfillment in the execution of that, I think is another, I think
huge,
probably the flip side of that coin.
And the quality of the products.
Yeah. And so I think that there's some, oh, hi, Eva. How's it going?
Good.
We'll introduce you to the group in just a second. So yeah, I think that was a really kind of a journey and a story that almost kind of told itself. And I'm sure that you have stats on that we probably won't get into right now. And I don't want to put you on the spot to show any of that stuff, but really interesting, I think, in the broader topic of retail as a whole. But Tareem, do you want to kind of take a stab at that same kind of concept?
Yeah, I think so. Like, to go back to your question, are we pushing anything, or are we prioritizing what it gets seen? Well, ultimately, we do know that products that get user-generated content, they will perform better, right? This we know. So it comes down to who has control of demand generation, right, with our platform. And currently, it's a tool for e-commerce teams where they, based on their business priorities, their strategic priorities, will decide which are the products that will get content. And I think the future of on-demand content really rests with putting that control into the actual hands of the ultimate consumer, the shopper online. So imagine you're shopping online, you're interested in something very similar to the experience of being able to ask a question about the item. Could you potentially ask for on-demand content, or I would call it an on-demand try-on, right? Would you maybe potentially be able to follow particular Sozies that you're more engaged with or you're more identified with, and have your content requests or your try-on requests always go out to them rather than be picked up on a first come first take basis? So I think this is a piece of like prioritizing which products get pushed. I think pushing that right back to the shoppers, who are ultimately the ones who are going to decide that, making them the forefront, the driving engine of deciding which products get content. I think that makes the most sense in the long term. And ultimately, it's the e-com teams are essentially trying to get to that answer anyways. Like, they're looking at a bunch of data and they're trying to get to that answer. I think it's just great if you could just put it directly to the shopper. So
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the data component, because I think that like, especially with all of your companies, that's really the tremendous value that you guys have created companies to solve, and the value that you're providing. But I want to take the opportunity to introduce Eva, founder and CEO of the Good Face Project. We're laughing because there was a little time mishap. So Eastern time versus Pacific Standard. Sincere apologies, Eva, but you want to give a quick overview of the Good Face Project and the incredible capabilities that you've built out over the past couple of years?
Of course, and apologies again on my end. Complete misunderstanding by 1 hour. The Good Face Project is building a transparency platform for cosmetics and personal care products, and enables retailers to curate the experience for the discerning shopper who is looking to find both safe and products that make sense specifically for their particular unique skin type and needs. We are currently in market with the Detox Market, which is one of the leaders in clean beauty. And what we do with them and with other smaller partner retailers is basically exposing a number of filters that have to do with specific ingredients. For example, I want to shop for products that have vitamin C in them, that are good for sensitive skin, that are non-comedogenic and have no parabens in them. I can do that on retail, on e-commerce websites that are supported by the Good Face Project's APIs.
Amazing. It's very similar. Daniel gave an overview of Cooklist earlier, and I feel like it's a very similar kind of experience of like empowering consumers to say, hey, what's in these, like, I think recipes, ingredients within these recipes, and you're doing it of like, what are the ingredients that are in these beauty products? Because I think am the first one to admit, when I buy any product and I look at the ingredient panel and it's like a bunch of just letters, honestly, I can't even pronounce them. I'm like, I have no clue. I'll just put this injustice in my body through my skin. So I think what you've developed is remarkable. And I like I think when you were, when I first learned about the Good Face Project, you had described it as like a lit review for the ingredient panel on the back of beauty products and cosmetic products. And I was like, wow, like having been in school for so many years, understanding kind of like that lit review, I think is such an easy way for me to picture it. It's so cool. And the consumer facing app is really awesome.
Thank you.
So very, very cool. What's that?
And welcome.
Yes, welcome. Well, kind of diving in here, I just want to make sure, actually, we can probably hop to this question to Reem from Taylor in the chat, that would Sozie ever consider teaming up with consumers themselves to post pictures in clothing, maybe incentivizing them to leave pictures and reviews with some store credit and rewards program? I think you might have answered that earlier, but I think it'd be great for the new people.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't clear. So we do have two business models, and one, like it's a platform, and you can essentially onboard whomever you wish to be the Sozie, whether that's a subset of your own consumers. And yes, there's an incentive model where they get a small incentive to be content creators, or it could be your employees, or it could be, even a subgroup of influencers that you already work with. This is a much more automated and efficient way to work with them than any of the other solutions on the market. So the platform is developed and has a set of configurations that allow you then to decide who it is that is actually going to be your Sozies. And Sozies are the generic term we use for whoever is the user of the app, whether that's your consumers who are potentially slightly incentivized or get something back in return, or it's your employees, or it's a group of influencers you work with potentially. So a Sozie could be anybody.
Awesome.
That's the crux of it, because shoppers are everybody, and so Sozies should be everybody, because
that's kind of the purpose.
For everybody, basically.
That's perfect. I do want to address Betty, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, your question about the applications for the Target Accelerator for 2021. There isn't kind of a defined date of when we'll be accepting applications, but at Target, we're always looking for innovative capabilities. So there should be, if you go to targetaccelerators.com and contact us form, be sure to put your information in there. That gets fed out to our team on a regular basis. And so we'll look at capabilities all throughout the year. And if those align with business use cases, then we're constantly evaluating them. Okay, pivoting back to these questions for you guys. One other thing that I think has been a theme that I think you guys have touched on a little bit, but throughout the week that we've seen, especially with the pandemic, is the increase in collaboration between retailers or between partners or even industry. I think of some that are like so delightful in my mind, of like Ben & Jerry's and Nike. I don't know why I think of that. Ben & Jerry's has done some crazy, amazing things this year. So I think that they win, or 2020 rather, we're in 2021 now. But Target and Ulta just recently announced a partnership that is still kind of being sussed out and what that relationship will even look like. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts of what collaboration and kind of consortium model might look like, because it seems like it's pretty critical now in this day and age. Let's start with Eva. Do you want to start with that one?
Of course. Actually, 2020 was the epic year of merging retail channels for beauty. We had Credo Beauty entering Ulta, and then Ulta entering Target. And we also had Beauty Counter entering Sephora. And at the same time, we saw this just eruption of celebrity-driven brands that, of course, are more like the merging of social media and entertainment with retail. So it's been crazy, and it's just testament to the fact that first of all, we are shoppers, but we're also consumers, and we have like not this continuous lives between shopping and living, right? And at this point in time, the merging between entertainment, social media, retail, and overall experiences is just something that we will continue living with for the rest of our lives. And it's really driven by the abundance of data that there is now about how we behave, what we want, moment to moment to moment throughout our day, right? Now, that's a bit scary, but at the same time, it's very convenient, right? And I think that what specifically is happening in beauty is the desire for people to merge their lifestyle with the way they shop and the way that they look. Retailers are going to continue to collaborate with each other because, we want to recognize that when we go to Target, we don't end up being different people from when we're at Ulta. So why not just be the same person and be served in the way that we expect? So the piece that is driving also really the value in collaboration, specifically in beauty right now, has a lot to do with continuing to build up trust. Whether it is for, Target by teaming up with Ulta, or for Ulta teaming up with Target, continuing to elevate that trust that the shopper, the guest, the Target guest, the Ulta shopper has in the respective retailers' ability to meet them where they are, educate, delight, and eventually supply what the shopper is looking for is really, really important. And what we see from our own collaborations, and we have a bunch of collaborations, not just with retailers, but also with brands and insights companies, is that in beauty, the key for the shopper and for the guest and for the consumer is knowledge and understanding of what it is really that's in my bottle, and how am I going to stay healthy by using it, and how am I going to look more beautiful by using it.
That's what I want to know.
And so that understanding is very driven on the basis of really demystifying ingredients. It is really like the rallying cry in beauty currently. Over 3/4 of consumers that shop for products are looking up ingredients and want to know whether it is what ingredients to eliminate or what ingredients to include in their regimen. And to us, specifically in the opportunity to continue to collaborate, ingredients are the key.
Yeah.
So that's how we see it in the beauty industry.
That's amazing, and it kind of aligned with what I think, hopefully, what Target is planning with Ulta and every future partnership. Tareem, I'm curious about your perspective here in the sense of, I think of Adidas specifically, of, Adidas, unlike Target, a lot of the brands, actually Target the same, but like, are you able to share those Sozie profiles of like, if Adidas is sold on ASOS or another retailer's website, are you able to share, the Sozie information and that trust to multiple retailers, or is it sticking right now within Adidas site?
Yeah, absolutely. So the content can be leveraged on multiple platforms. So I think a good example would be like, Target's not such a great example because it's its own clothes, but if you think of like a Kohl's, for example, they sell a ton of different brands. If the content is generated for Levi's through Kohl's, if we service Kohl's, then that content can be used by Levi's elsewhere as well. So there's a business model that plays into that, which incentivizes the retailer to actually motivate their brands who sell on their platforms to then potentially finance some of that content if it is incentivized. So absolutely, yes.
Love it. And Danielle, I think your collaborations look probably more, which I think is a topic that I want to discuss too. So like in more of that social space of like with a lot of the people, I don't know, recipe authors.
The authors, yeah.
Is there a word for like, I feel like there should be. Recipeteers.
Yeah, I guess I would say thinking of collaboration that it would be like us collaborating with the retailers. So in the sense that, the restaurant industry now has Grubhub and Uber Eats and all of these basically platforms that aggregate the available supply of any food that you could order for delivery or takeout. And it's in a similar way, we're trying to do the same thing for groceries with Cooklist, is basically aggregate all the available supply into the one interface that then gives the ultimate, right, the person who is doing the grocery shopping for their household, it makes their life a lot easier and a lot simpler. And it's was initially something that it can be, because retailers used to be like very, very protective of like pricing and inventory and availability.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we look at it is really it's not one grocery store retailer versus another. It should be the grocery industry versus the prepared foods industry, right? And what we're trying to do with Cooklist is to basically form a collaboration between the different retailers so that they can reach people through the Cooklist interface. And then it kind of reduces the barrier to cooking a meal from scratch or buying groceries to where it's just as easy or easier than ordering Uber Eats or delivery from Domino's or something. And I think that's kind of if trends keep headed the way that they're headed, eventually we're going to get to the point where there is no grocery shopping or cooking at home. And so I think that's kind of the message that we try to deliver with Cooklist is this is the technological solution to help really the whole grocery industry stay competitive as kind of, with autonomous and electric vehicles, the costs that are associated with doing the delivery are coming way down.
Yeah.
So, and then just automation is going to make the preparing of food a lot easier and cheaper. So, yeah, I think then there's collaboration within the app or like within households, right? Everyone in the household uses like, that. Yeah. So like that's a really big thing is having one central place for the shopping list or, it's like there's users we talk to that in their household, it's like, if you want something from the grocery store, put it in Cooklist. And then every member of the household has the Cooklist app and they can all collaborate on one central shopping list and then it'll all get ordered or, they'll engage with their kids to like pick out a recipe that they want to either eat or like participate in cooking. So there's kind of collaboration at that level as well.
That is amazing. And I think touching a little bit more, actually, one thing I do want to mention in what you mentioned of it will become kind of retailers against the, Uber Eats or with prepared food. I think that was a little bit of a reflection of what we saw with Shipt, of like Target's acquisition of that. And Shipt serves a bunch of retailers in addition to Target. And I think that, that's a similar mindset of we can
adapt,
capability and then leverage that for retailers to succeed, to deliver goods to people. So I think they totally aligned with you there. Danielle, I'd like to kind of touch a little bit more on, and I think you guys are all working in this space of being able, all startups for the most part, but I think you guys in particular are really nimble and are able to move a lot more quickly than a big behemoth like Target or anybody else in the industry. And I think what we're seeing, I think you described it a little bit ago, Eva, of like people have everything has just been the same of where we're shopping and where we're consuming and where we're eating, and it's all just one event now. or maybe that was you, Tarim, that said that. And I want to talk about like some of the trends that we're seeing in social of, the commerce related activities of buying from live events or what you guys are seeing and how you're planning to adapt to kind of the quickly changing social environment. Jenna, do you want to start that one?
Yeah. So I don't know if, the live events, I think the way that I would think of it, it's something we've been experimenting with is doing like partnerships, I guess, with influencers who will do sort of like either in the food or health or fitness space. And then, essentially going live and doing things through social media channels, which is then, their way that they're able to then monetize that is to kind of, if they have like a recipe that they've developed or a meal plan that they've put together, they can kind of direct their audience to Cooklist, where then they can, when that person is either buying those groceries and upgrading to the premium version of Cooklist, they can earn affiliate commissions through doing that. And so, other than that, I don't know too much, or we don't play too much in the live space.
That's totally understandable. I think live space being just like an illustrative example of like, we're seeing a little bit more trends of like, shopping on I don't know, what are the gaming platforms or whatever kind of environment, meeting the guests where they are. I think you guys have done a really good job kind of forging relationships with the guests or the consumers that you're working with, that you can really quickly kind of follow them and adjust to where they're going versus having to leverage or work through Target to then get to those people. And Eva, I think, you guys are working very closely in this space. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Actually, since the last time we checked in, Sarah, we've had an explosion in subscriptions to the GoodFace app, which is our consumer-facing solution. And what we've seen there is actually that people really, really want to experience new products, and they don't want to go to the store anymore to pick them up. So on the app, we have functionality for consumers to actually request samples. And what happened was that so many people were so excited about actually experiencing new products and specifically clean new products that are a good fit to their skin's needs, which is exactly what the app supplies to the consumer, that we now have started this kind of like very, very grassroots, very like community-oriented new program, which is called GoodFace Experts. We have close to 13,000 GoodFace experts, and these are app users that are panelists that have basically opted into sharing feedback and providing reviews and providing very, very in-depth, pieces of information about their experience with the products that they have been given by any one of the over 300 brands that currently are members of our platform. And so we actually have started this. It just started like 2 months ago, and it's crazy because we now have this engagement where people are constantly talking about the brands that we're experiencing as a community. This very week, we're actually focusing on a brand called H2O Plus, which recently reformulated all of its products together with us. And which is now GoodFace Project approved in terms of being completely clean by our standards. And our community is interacting with the brand's products, and we're collecting a bunch of insights from that. And what's happening is it's just like a snowball. As soon as people started being able to like talk about things and like experience the same products together, more people came. And then more brands came, and then more people came, and it's just becoming really quite viral. And it like I said, it happened overnight, and it happened from one app feature, which is basically one little button that says request samples.
Ah, that's amazing. I love it. And I think I'm predicting a collaboration between you or the Good Face and Sozie of like, hey, you can review clothes, and also one little button, you can also review your skincare.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I think there could be something in the mix where we start to look into beauty. It's a little bit lower for us than fashion apparel in terms of priorities, but certainly it's on the list. So I'm sure we'll be talking. But in terms of live streaming for us, like the opportunity really is, when you take your staff and your stores, your employees, or as you guys call them, your team members, and you turn them into content creators and you connect them to your online shoppers, that opens up quite a few opportunities to connect them to that online shopper. And one of the ways is potentially to have live communication. So most of that today is text-based, but absolutely there's no reason why you couldn't have somebody connected to you via video, right from the PDP. You could be shopping on your PDP, and you would be able to connect with potential people inside stores. So I think that is definitely part of the future. There are solutions that are doing live streaming from employees to online shoppers. The difficulty with that is that scale is an issue there. Like it's a one-to-one communication and then it ends. So, what's the business model there? How much sales to generate? And is that viable? So I think that's a question that needs to be solved and our approach to that is we've created a sort of anytime an employer, staff, or team member is engaged in creating content, we let that content live on the website of the retailer for multiple different, maybe potentially thousands of different shoppers to see. And so it's not just a one-to-one interaction, it's a one-to-many interaction. It may start with a one-to-one interaction, but the same question, the same information provided, the same visual content that's useful to that one person who initiated the content request or the video call request, that same information and visuals could be potentially relevant to so many other shoppers. And so leaving it available on the PDP for viewing, for browsing is, I think that's how we're solving that piece of the monetization of this and justifying it basically financially.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned there too. In a session a few days ago when I was talking to some of the hardware solutions that have come through the tech programs over the years, we talked a little bit about the dynamic or the kind of dichotomy of how much of their companies were started based out of a guest need, and then how much of that has transitioned over time to help to be positioned and or help team members or associates. And I think that that's something that's so compelling, Tareem, of kind of touching on my last point, even that you guys are able to move so much quicker that if you think about I'll just say a retailer, if we were to try to say, okay, how can we start to empower the several 100,000 employees that we can become content creators or something like that, that initiative would be a really, really big undertaking, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we secure all these things. But I think, having it come in an organic way to say, hey, we have this opportunity. You can be incentivized just like anybody else that would be on the platform.
Right. That's right.
But even then start to acknowledge like the people that you're chatting with about this. I mean, that's like extending the hours that people would work on stores, or, they're wanting to engage in this versus if it's an initiative from a retailer, kind of a top-down approach. It may not be like, it's a work if somebody's texting me and asking me a question, like, and I'm told to do it versus, hey, if I'm on Sozie and I want to be responding about this dress, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it has a button.
Yeah. It's certainly like, it feels, it's like we get a lot of feedback from Sozie. There's a lot of people, like you have 1,800 stores in America. Target has so many stores, and think of the number of people that have worked at Target in their lives. So in our Sozie user base, there are certainly people who have worked at Target, will work at Target, or maybe even do work at Target. There certainly is that. And this is something that I think it's a real, we get a lot of, oh, I love Target, whether it's from like a work there perspective or I love shopping there. There's a lot of that that comes through from their love for the activity.
And a lot of similar kind of trend of we're seeing people late last year, kind of the increase in delivery drivers, I think kind of tying in the Cooklist aspect of this. Like a lot of people were delivering shipped groceries on their way home from their Target, shift or whatever it happened to be. So like, why not also create the opportunity for them to leave reviews and just be experts in their domain? And I think that's fundamentally, one of the positions that Target has viewed its team members to be, is like, we want to pay high wages so that people can be experts in domains, not just accepting cash in a register. So one thing I do want to touch, I know that we're kind of over time. We were planning for roughly an hour, but I love this discussion, and there's still a handful of people in here. So I think I would love to continue chatting with you guys for maybe like another 10, 15 minutes. The last kind of topic area that I want to talk about, and this is perhaps one of the most crucial as a startup selling into retailers and other organizations, is the data that you're able to provide retailers. And I think this is especially crucial in the business model of retail that has transitioned to who can get things to people the most efficiently. So like, we're seeing it across the board, but this week has really proven that it's so much more than that. It's about the experience. It's about the trust. It's about the confidence that it's going to get there. The quality that you mentioned, Daniel. There's so many more things than just, I think maybe a few years ago, people would have predicted, how can we just get things to people faster? So I want to talk about, how are you leveraging the insights that you're gleaning to then be an additional value add to retailers and the companies that you're working with? Daniel, since we haven't heard your voice in a while.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few interested in providing these kind of insights to retailers. So, obviously one is kind of understanding some of the more traditional things like share of wallet, or the types of products that are being purchased at one retailer versus another, because most of our users will connect all the retailers they shop at. So we kind of get this full picture of, where their spending goes. And we actually make that available through some components in the app to users. So you can, users can keep track of like how much they're spending at Target versus Walmart versus, Costco or other stores.
And you can pay them for how much they're spending at these stores.
Yeah, as well as seeing like I was actually very surprised because we do a breakdown by like product category as well. And so like one of our biggest expenses is beverages, just because I'm like addicted to kombucha. And so, like I wouldn't have predicted that about our own grocery spending, but it's kind of interesting. And we've gotten feedback from users too, that especially we kind of have users that fall into different buckets of either they're, extremely cost conscious and trying to like stretch their dollar through cooking and groceries, or they're like kind of in the higher segment where they just are they'll pay to save time essentially. And so, some people get a lot of value out of Cooklist for saving money. Some people get a lot of value out for saving time. But as far as the data too, I think another interesting thing is we're essentially kind of an aggregator of future demand. So, throughout the week, people are building up their shopping list in the Cooklist app, and then they're going to push it to one of the retailers for, ordering all their groceries. And what I'm really curious about is, could this data be moved up the supply chain so that the retailers can better plan, their ordering of the packaged salads, right? So if you could predict out into the future a few weeks how many packaged salads are going to be bought, then from a retailer perspective, I think it can kind of help make the whole supply chain more efficient by reducing waste in that sense. But then also, understanding how those products are being used once they're in the home, and how people's kind of taste and the way that they're using products changes over time. That could potentially be fed even higher up the supply chain to kind of the R&D labs of companies that, CPG companies that are developing new products to see where are the trends heading next, or, what is going to be the flavor or the specific packaging, or, the ingredient that is like the thing that people really start caring about. So I think, yeah, in all of those ways, we're very interested in seeing like, how can we use the data to help basically make the whole retail supply chain more efficient.
And more actionable too. I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. All of retail or food waste has been a problem for so long, and there's been solution after solution, but it still remains such a massive problem. It's like, how are we not solving this? And like, I think leveraging a lot of the data that you have in these insights is a lot bigger than what meets the eye. Tarun, do you want to take a stab at kind of the data that you're able to glean from some of your consumer?
Yeah. So we like for our clients, the retail clients that we work with, they get the full view via data of how requests that they've sent out for content, how they're being filled, what portion of them are being filled, how many days does it take from the day they request till the day like content is live on their website. And that really helps them inform their demand side, right? So when should they place the content requests, for which content, how many, and so they use that as part of as a way of using the platform. Where we found that the data was, I guess, a surprise and going up the supply chain, to use Daniel's words, is it's being leveraged by the physical product design teams, right? So you have the people who are actually designing the clothes. They're gleaning a ton of information from this rich content because they're able to then to garner very specific size and fit feedback from a wide variety of consumers and at scale. So that's probably a service that they used to pay for completely separately, which is just a byproduct of the data that Sozie is generating for them. And we don't have that. But and so I think that it wasn't something we planned for, but it's like such an obvious a use case for the data, and ultimately that means better design for the consumer. Not to get too deep into fashion, but fashion has such a terrible history of designing on a specific size, and it's a really thin size, and it designs on that size, and then it just kind of adds inches to all the other sizes, which isn't how humans work. Like,
we all wish that when we gained weight or lost weight, that it was just exactly proportionate that way.
Right. Yeah, I know, right? It's like every 13-year-old girl's fantasy. Like, I just want to lose the weight here or there or whatever. Like, it's just, yeah. So it's ludicrous, really, actually, if you think about how clothes are designed, considering the vast majority of people are not the size that it's designed for, and that humans don't work that way. You don't just add inches. But that's how it's done. So I really hope that with this data starting to be generated, and this data is new largely, right? This doesn't exist. Where has there ever been a large pool of actual body measurements of real human beings and how they fit into specific clothes, right? With this data now, you have measurements, body measurements of humans aligned with body measurements of specific clothes and what size they are. And this I think, as it grows, is going to be leveraged more and more. And I hope that we move towards a different design model for clothes themselves, so that it's not, ridiculous, really. So.
Eva, I saw you smiling and nodding, and I was like thinking in my mind, this couldn't have been a more perfect kind of tee up for.
Yeah,
I think building off of what Tarun said.
It's so relevant to her too.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Tarun said. Just take it and just put it in a bottle. It's we collect information that has to do with your skin type, with where you live. Therefore, we know where what your climate is, exactly how dry, exactly how cold, exactly how sunny it is where you live. We know whether you're pregnant or if you are still on birth control. We know if you have rosacea or eczema, or if you're using Accutane, for example. So we know all of these things about you as a consumer that is on our app. And, it's completely protected data that we would never divulge at the individual level. However, when you become a good face expert and you use the very example with H2O plus, their hydration oasis routine, and we know that we have matched you to that routine because of the key ingredients that it delivers to your skin. And you tell us that it made your skin more luminous, or maybe that it made you break out. We take that information, and where we're going is basically all of this goes to inform the development of private label formulas for 2 specific partners that we have at retail, but we also have brands that we're collaborating with very much in the same fashion as, no pun intended, as Tareen shared. The R&D formulators.
Oh, I got the pun.
Yeah. So the R&D in the same fashion. So basically, we really are designing the next generation of beauty by being able to pull all of that information together at the personal level, together with what it is that you experienced from this particular formula or product. And we really are building an AI-powered R&D chemist in the background as we speak.
It's so amazing. Yeah, I think exactly what you guys both said, and the way that feedback is going to inform how we can actually design clothes better. Feedback is going to inform how products actually, the efficacy of products that we're putting on our faces and in our bodies and all of these other things. It's, I get so excited about this. I'm like, gosh, yeah, I'm not biased. You guys are working on really cool shit. And it solves real needs, and it's like, it makes me super excited. So
yeah, I guess the big word that no one's kind of brought up, which is really the outcome of it all, is like hyper personalization, right?
Exactly.
That's what I wish that's not what it was called, to have clothes designed for your body, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's been such a journey.
Thing, like, you can have personalization and pay a ton for it. But to have it in an economical way and at scale, that's really the advance. I think all of this data we'll see in our separate sectors, whether that's help me out, guys.
No, exactly.
I think makeup or fashion.
Yeah.
And actually to take it to add a bit of color on it from the beauty side. People in beauty don't care to pay for personalization or information for that matter, but they start to expect it already. So how are you going to do it in a way that, doesn't break the bank for you as a brand or a retailer? That's your problem, right? So
that's
it's
a good
not like
situation for you, because then you can just charge the retailer and brand and just use your money.
Yeah, and I think what you guys have both, you're all working on this, is every retailer out there years ago, we saw this even up to this year, people literally, what personalization is a spectrum, right? But I think of even Nordstrom having custom embroiders on masks, custom embroidering like your initials on a mask. But I think what we thought of as customization a couple of years ago, and what it's actually kind of turned into be, is really this customer driven, like, I will go out and find this information on my own, and I expect retailers to be on board and also be providing me this information. Otherwise, I'll write a review or whatever it is. But I think that has been a journey of, like, these retailers aren't in a position to be able to develop out, and what you've developed out, all of you, have to say, we're going to, every person that comes in the store, we're going to try to create a customized beauty routine for it. It's just not scalable. But I think what you guys are working on is kind of this really quick and nimble way, and you're getting this consumer demand and then integrating with the retailers later is just honestly almost the only approach that could have worked, and it's working, I think, brilliantly. So I'm delighted about what the future holds.
For sure. The consumer nowadays is not like, my mom, the way she shops is she goes to the store, not now, but when she could go to the store, and she browses and delights in like all the different boxes and little bottles and all of this stuff, and calls me from the store, and she's like, "Oh, honey, I think I found a cream for your dad's toe," or whatever it is, and they browsed, they used to browse. And nowadays, Sarah, Tareen, and me, when we want to buy, and probably Daniel too, when we want to buy something to slap on our face, we want to find retinol cream that is for the night, with chamomile in it, maybe some CBD, no fragrance, and it's under $50. And that's everything we put on Google, or in the Amazon search box. Like, we don't say best moisturizer for the night. There's like, those are gone days. So we're actually all like really spoiled, and we expect to find the answers right away.
Yeah, and the same way that our parents used to plan out these elaborate like recipes. Actually, my parents had like 3 that they would make on rotation. But like, I'm not gonna like come up with this thing. I'm gonna browse, and maybe then I want somebody to be like, here's what you can make tonight with the things that you have. Like,
yeah.
It's just you guys are doing it. Okay, I want to thank you. I know that we're coming up on time. If you guys have anything else that you kind of want to get out, I think all of you, if you want to drop your URLs, your websites into the chat. So I know that there's been lots of interest in all of your apps and all of what you're working on. So I think would love for you guys to leave it there. And if you want to leave, I think most of you have left your contact information as well. I'll leave my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything from today or any other startups or about Target in general. I probably can't answer most of them, but maybe can point you to the right place. But thank you, Tareem, Daniel, and Eva. You guys are so wonderful and lovely. And every chance I get to connect with you is just the best day ever. So thank you for your insights today. Delightful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for organizing this, and it was fun.
Yes, loving it. And I fully expect you guys to have like at least 40 more app downloads at the end of today. Yes. I was a Cooklist user for a very long time, especially when you guys were in the program and shortly after. And then like, with everything, use it and sometimes don't, and then go back in and edit my pantry. And then I'll get like, I remember when I was first like scraping some of the stuff, and I was like joking with Daniel and his co-founder Brandon, like, what can I use with this diaper ointment that I purchased? And it would go over my history. Like, what can I use? What recipe can I make with these whatever random things? And then I was actually kind of insecure a little bit because I was like, Daniel and Brandon can see the things that I'm buying. They know me. And they're going to be like, you should not be buying all of that diet soda, Sarah.
I wish we
exactly
had
what you probably all day long.
to that particular level.
As if anybody gives a shit about what I'm buying.
You know.
That's true. That's so true.
No.
I think about that when people get paranoid about the cameras and they're like, don't you have one of those things to cover your camera? I'm like, what would people look at? Like, me working? Eat your heart out.
There's value there.
Somebody would buy it somewhere.
Somebody would pay for that.
All right. Well, thanks again, and can't wait for the next time that we connect. Thank you, everybody that tuned in today. Again, I'm going to leave my email in the chat, but looking forward to connecting with everybody again.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.